in, everybody. How about this little bit of a bonus episode, I guess you would call it, of the Aaron Torres pod? I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. And I think we have a little bit of fun here on a Saturday evening. Just let's argue a little bit. First of all, guys, tell me my mic. Okay, is my mic good? Let me know if my mic is good. No producer Matt. I'm flying solo here today. Let me know if my mic is good, but do want to have everybody come on in. And I want to debate the argument that I think everybody is going to be having here over the next, 36, probably 12 hours or so. Who gets that final college football playoff spot? And maybe the better question is, who gets the two final college football playoff spots? Alabama absolutely blown out and destroyed by the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC championship game. Final score in this one, 28-7. And I think there was a thought coming into today that there was no issue, no problem, that there was no scenario where Alabama was not going to get into the college football playoff. And I do think after that game, I do think it is worth asking. So everybody come on in. Appreciate everybody joining me here on a Saturday night. Figured it'd be a fun time to kind of go live. We're in between games. Was not planning on going live, but just felt like a fun conversation to have. I want to hear from you guys in the comments section. We still have a half hour or so to the Big Ten championship game when, we're going to see 1 versus 2, Indiana and Ohio State. So everybody come on in. First of all, no issues with the mic. Let's go ahead and discuss this. Before we do, by the way, do want to give a quick shout out to our friends and our ticketing partners, SeatGeek and the SeatGeek app. Okay, so SeatGeek is America's #1 ticketing app. Here's the bottom line. You're probably going to need tickets over these next couple weeks, right? Maybe you're a Georgia fan, a Texas Tech fan. You know your team's going to the college football playoff. Maybe you're a Miami fan. Maybe you're a Notre Dame fan, and you're not quite sure. And so I bring it up because you're going to need tickets. And if you need tickets, you need to go to SeatGeek. It is America's #1 ticketing app. Over 28 million downloads so far. Here's the great thing about SeatGeek, though. Really two things. One, they take care of all of their customers. Every ticket on the app rated 1 through 10, green dot or red dot. Green dot means go ahead and purchase that bad boy. Red dot means maybe you want to stay away. But what I also love about SeatGeek, they take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod, okay? So if you download the SeatGeek app, if you use promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. So go to SeatGeek.com, use promo code Torres. You get $20 off your first purchase. I actually know several Indiana fans that use the code for tonight's Big Ten championship game. And if your team is going to a bowl game, if you want to watch your college basketball team, maybe your college basketball team stinks and you want to go to a show, concert, whatever, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. With that said, oh, buddy, it is a busy Saturday night all of a sudden in the world of college football. There is no more time to waste. So, people, let's do it quick. Let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, listen, college football playoff. We talked about it obviously all week long, right? And so really coming into the week, I believed that essentially 11 of the 12 spots in the playoff were already decided. And what I believed was this. The two teams in the Big Ten championship game, Indiana, Ohio State in. We have the 3 other conference champions outside of the SEC and the Big Ten. We assumed Texas Tech would win the Big 12. They did. They're in. Obviously, Tulane has won the American. They are in. And there's still debate. Is it going to be James Madison, Virginia, or Duke for that final auto bid, okay? But what I also believed was this. Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Oregon have also clinched spots. And so what it was going to come down to for 2 spots was number 9 Alabama, number 10 Notre Dame, number 11 BYU, and of course number 12 Miami. We know what was at stake coming into today. BYU, I fought for them, did feel like they probably needed to win their game. And then, of course, there is the argument about Notre Dame versus Miami if it does come down to 1 spot. So I bring it up because I mentioned that I believed 11 spots were clinched, okay? And that 11th spot included whoever lost the SEC championship game. I actually think that the debate, there really was no debate coming into today, is that basically it was presumed and assumed and whatever that Alabama was going to go ahead and get into the college football playoff, win or lose in this game. Here's the thing, though. The one thing that could not happen, they could not get bullied. They could not get dominated, because then it opens the door of, are they actually one of the 7 best at-large candidates? Because remember, they have 3 losses. No team with 3 losses has ever gotten an at-large bid to the college football playoff. They do have, and this is worth noting, they do have the worst loss of any real, contender for the college football playoff. That would obviously be to Florida State in week 1. Now, if you want to talk about Texas losing to Florida, I don't believe that Texas is actually a candidate to get into the college football playoff. And so I just bring it up because, to me, it felt like going into Saturday, there was no scenario where Bama could not get in. But they were in fear of picking up their 3rd loss. Obviously, they have the bad loss to Florida State. But then on top of that, the counter is this. Are you going to punish Alabama for getting a 3rd loss in a bonus conference championship game that I don't want to say they didn't have to play in, but obviously just the way the tiebreakers broke, that's how they ended up there, right? If things had broken differently, there's a world where Alabama finishes with a 10-2 record, 7-1 in the SEC, and they don't go to Atlanta because, of course, they finished, we all know this, tied in the loss column with Ole Miss and with A&M. Technically, they finished in the loss column with Georgia as well. And so I only bring it up because by tiebreaker and happenstance, Alabama ended up in the SEC championship game, okay? And so I just bring it up. We could go on and on, but here is the question. Now that the result is final, there are a couple different scenarios that I have seen. One, Alabama's definitively in. We're not going to punish them for making a conference championship game, even if they got blown out. 2, does Alabama potentially slip out and BYU losing a conference championship game? They're probably out as well. Do Notre Dame and Miami get into the conversation? And I will say, I do think there is an interesting scenario that is now in play for the committee, which is, are you going to drop BYU? If you drop BYU, in theory, you probably have to drop Alabama as well. You can't punish one team for making the conference championship game, but not the other. And so it becomes this $64,000 question of what happens with all of these teams at the top. And of course, with Alabama playing as poorly as they did, I do think there's this world where you can legitimately justify, hey, they're not one of the 7 best at-large candidates, and because of it, they should not be in the playoff. And maybe there's a world where you put both Miami and Notre Dame into the college football playoff. I will add this, by the way, something that nobody's talking about. Miami and Alabama, we're talking about the Miami and Notre Dame head-to-head. Remember, Miami and Alabama have a head-to-head common opponent in the same venue, which was Florida State. Miami beat the crap out of them in Doak Campbell. Alabama lost to them in week 1. And so there's a lot of debate. There's a lot of controversy. I see the chat is humming. Let me say this. This is what I believe and what I believe will happen. I think 2 things can be true. We always talk about this. In life, 2 things can be true that feel contradictory to each other. And what I believe is this. 2 things can be true. 1, I don't know that I believe that Alabama is legitimately one of the 7 best at-large candidates. But what I will also say is this. I don't think that the committee wants to set the precedent of leaving them out for having to play in this extra conference championship game that by tiebreak they ended up in. So in other words, if Ole Miss was in this game, Ole Miss would not be punished and dropped out of the playoff picture because of playing in a conference championship game. Same with A&M. And so I don't believe Alabama will be punished. And if you're asking me what I think is going to happen, and I'm going to get to some of your questions and comments in the chat here momentarily. If you're asking me what I think is going to happen, what I think is going to happen is this. I think Alabama might fall. I think they might fall as low as the last at-large team. In other words, I think, I don't know exactly, I guess they couldn't in theory because they'd have to fall behind, whatever. The point I'm trying to make, I think Alabama falls. I don't think they miss out on the college football playoff. 2 things can be true. I don't know that they're one of the 7 best candidates for an at-large bid. I do believe that the committee is not going to punish them for playing in a conference championship game. So let's go ahead and dive in really quickly. I want to get to some of your comments. The chat is humming. To me, it's pretty straightforward, right? Is that one, I just don't think the committee is going to, first of all, let me even backtrack. I think the committee actually protected themselves from this exact scenario on Tuesday when the latest rankings came out. If you listen to our show on Wednesday morning, what did I say? Because remember, Alabama was ranked one spot behind Notre Dame coming into this week. And then last week in the rankings, Alabama magically moved ahead of Notre Dame. And at the time, the committee said all this stuff about, the Iron Bowl this and da-da-da that. And here's the thing. And what I said is, nobody cares about the Iron Bowl. Like, we care about the Iron Bowl. The committee is not watching and like, that Iron Bowl win is so impressive that Alabama has to move up into the rankings. Okay? No. All the committee did was move Alabama ahead of Notre Dame to protect themselves from this exact scenario. In other words, they were protecting themselves in case Alabama fell behind, lost this game in the manner that they did. Because if they had kept the rankings the way that they were, if they had kept Alabama behind Notre Dame, you couldn't then jump Alabama past Notre Dame if they lost in this conference championship game. And so to go back to Tuesday, the committee actively and purposely moved Alabama ahead of Notre Dame on the chance that they lost this game, knowing that it would be a huge controversy if they did not. But now they could justify, hey, we're not going to drop them past Notre Dame because they played in an extra game. And so I don't blame the committee for doing it. They were protecting themselves. And what also happened was this, is that if you then set it up where BYU were to say fall for losing a second time, then all of a sudden Notre Dame and Miami are next to each other in the standings. And if that happens, guess what? Now you can compare them head to head, and all of a sudden Miami versus Notre Dame for the 12th spot becomes a thing. And you can then say, listen, Miami's got the head-to-head win. Sorry, Notre Dame, you lost in South Beach, Hard Rock Stadium back in, late August, early September, whenever it was. So that's what I believe is going to happen. Is it fair? I don't know. Life isn't fair. And the one thing I will say is this, is that I do think there is a misconception about this entire college football playoff. One, I think everything that everybody says is true about it being a reality TV show. That I don't disagree with. But beyond that, let's remember, there are different variables for different situations, whatever. I think we have this perception of it's about the 12 best teams. It's never been about the 12 best teams because we have auto bids, a G5 bid, an ACC bid. So I think once you get into the at-large debate, you can kind of twist it however you want. And the one thing I will say, like, Alabama does have some great wins. They have the win over Georgia, which obviously Georgia just avenged. But then on top of it, they also have the win against Vandy. They have a couple other nice wins, whatever. So that's my personal opinion. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I believe what is going to happen is what I've said all along, is that Alabama is going to get into the playoff. They will drop BYU. And by the way, people will say, how can you not drop Alabama but drop BYU? First of all, committee can do whatever they want because they're the committee. But two, they can justify, well, Bama beat them the first time. This is Georgia I'm talking about. Bama beat Georgia the first time. Georgia beat them the second time. Who can really tell the difference between the two? And then with BYU, you could say, listen, they got boat raced twice by Texas Tech. I'm not saying that's fair. I'm sure we have some BYU fans either in the chat or are going to watch this on replay. I'm just saying that's the justification. And then I believe Miami will eventually get in over Notre Dame. So my prediction is that Alabama and Notre Dame essentially get the last two spots. Obviously, whoever wins the ACC in theory will get one as well. But that's where I believe that the playoff will end up. Really quickly, I want to get to some of the chat. And by the way, we will prioritize super chats, so make sure to drop your super chats. But before we get to your questions, your comments, whatever, I do want to go ahead and thank our hotel and our casino partners. You can see it down there, Circa Sportsbook, Circa Casino, okay? So I go to Vegas all the time, was out there for the Players era a few weeks ago, saw, Michigan basketball, Auburn basketball, Tennessee basketball, Gonzaga, whatever. Here's the thing about Circa. Beautiful facility, awesome place, best place if you're a sports fan. You got to go there on an NFL Sunday, a college football Saturday, a big, college basketball day throughout the year. But at the same time, I know a lot of you can't get to Vegas, right? And so what I love about Circa, they have opened up a brand new sports book at Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. You can see it on the screen below. It's about 40 minutes from Nashville. As a matter of fact, this week, I'm probably going to be doing the Thursday show from the Mint. I got to go to Nashville this coming weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend. And I'll probably do my Thursday show from the Mint, about 35, 40 minutes from the Mint. We love Circa. And what I love about them, all the same great stuff from Vegas, you get all of that at the brand new sportsbook at Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. So if you're in Franklin, if you're around that area, it's 20-25 minutes from Bowling Green, Kentucky. Make sure to check it out. Mint Casino, Mint Kentucky Downs, Circa Sportsbook at Mint Kentucky Downs. Check it out, Franklin, Kentucky. Awesome spot. Let's go ahead and get to some of your questions and your chat. Chat is humming. Brian says the committee needs to grow a spine and knock BYU and Alabama out and no longer at large for Alabama. So this is probably the part I should have just said this, and I'm an idiot. I'm doing this all off the top of my head, so forgive me. But what I would say about this is here's the other variable, is if you knock and you punish Alabama for making an SEC championship game, I think two things can happen. One, it's the death of conference championships, which we kind of need to happen anyway. I think the SEC throws a fit, and I don't even know what potentially happens from there. Greg Sankey's a lunatic, okay? I mean, do they demand expansion? Do they demand the elimination of auto bids, right? Because if it was just the 12 highest-ranked teams, you could make the argument for Bama. Does it go to 60? I'm going to say something controversial. I would rather Bama get in for the protection of the overall health of college football, because if they don't get in, the SEC is going to throw a fit, the likes of which we've never seen. I don't know what that would mean. Again, do they demand that auto bids are removed? Do they demand that we go to 16 or 24? I don't know. I like the 12-team playoff. I think it's made for the best regular season we have ever had, and I think the second that there's a reason to change it, they're going to. So I don't think Alabama's going to get in or Alabama's going to be out, because, again, you are then devaluing the conference championship game. Okay. So Ahmad Zahad says, and this is great, because I was thinking about this during the Alabama-Georgia game, is I was watching Alabama get boat raced, right? And the argument, obviously, is Alabama shouldn't be punished for being in the conference championship game. And what I thought was, if this was Vandy instead of Alabama, in other words, we can pretend brand bias doesn't matter, but it does. If this was Vandy instead of Alabama, I think Vandy would be punished. And so, in other words, Ahmad is actually referencing the exact opposite. Basically, if Vandy was the 3-loss team that had wins over A&M, whatever, lost to Ohio State, they would be in. And listen, I think we can deny it. We could pretend it's not true. Brand bias is a real thing in college football. It shouldn't be. I wish it wasn't, but it absolutely is. And so I think it's a great point. Listen, at some point we got to leave teams out. And this is the part that drives me crazy, right? And I know this isn't even a Vandy specific conversation, but I saw Clark Lee on one of the TV shows on Friday basically saying, if we get left out, it's like at some point we got to cut a line off somewhere, right? If it was 16 teams, there'd be a 17th team. If it was 24 teams, there'd be a 25th team. And so I just don't think Vandy has the resume. I don't think Texas has the resume. I do think Alabama has the resume. I don't know if they're playing that well, but I do think Alabama gets in. Let's go ahead and get to some of these. Luke's in the chat as always. The SEC and Big Ten will literally secede and form their own playoff if Alabama's left out. Bingo. Luke, it's like you freaking read my mind, man. It's 100% accurate. There's no world, because, again, the ramifications of leaving out the essential SEC runner-up, we can't even begin to have that conversation. Again, the SEC might demand, a 24-team college football playoff. No auto bids. And by the way, let me say this. I am very anti this notion that the G5 should not get an auto bid to the college football playoff, okay? Because to me, first of all, they've been waiting 100 years for a shot. And two, there's this notion of like, we were never going to put the 12 best teams in. As a matter of fact, there is no postseason in America where the 12 best teams get in. So I'm happy that Tulane is in. James Madison still technically has a shot. We'll see what happens in the ACC conference championship game. But at some point, we have to acknowledge that, I like the auto bids and I like the process the way that it is. And you want this playoff as we know it to get blown up. Leave Alabama as the SEC runner-up out of the playoff. Clint says, go Hoosiers. He then says, Aaron, it's what have you done for me lately? You should know this, bruh. Well, listen, first of all, I think I said it on Thursday's show. Indiana's winning the Big Ten championship game. Now, some of you will see this much later. You'll probably make fun of me if I'm wrong. I think Indiana's winning. But it is a what have you done for me lately sport. Listen, I think Notre Dame's better than Alabama. We can't sit here and claim up until the final day that it's a totality of your resume deal, and then all of a sudden say it's not the totality of your resume, it's how you're playing now. And so if it's how you're playing now, not only is Notre Dame in, you could argue they should be like the 6th seed, right? Like, who's playing better right now? Notre Dame or A&M? Notre Dame or Oklahoma, who can't move the football? But it isn't. It is about the totality of the season. And because of it, Clinton, I appreciate you, and I'm glad that your Hoosiers are playing tonight, but I just don't think they get in. Luke says, people love to crap on the SEC, but the TV ratings are undeniable. The SEC and Big Ten could form their own playoff. 100%. And that's why I'm such an advocate for the auto bid for the G5. Because people say, well, just put the 16 or the 12 best teams in. Well, guess what? You don't think everything is already skewed in those teams' favor as it is. And so because of it, I'm sorry. This is why I'm not in favor of it. Jim, referencing the ACC championship game, says ACC will never let Duke win. I think, listen, I don't believe everything is rigged. I do believe the Cooper Flag lottery was rigged, among other things. But I don't think that the ACC would be happy with Duke winning that game because, listen, by the way, I'll say this. I don't know if we talked about this on the show last week, but like Nicole Auerbach, who I think is really good at what she does, she kind of made the argument, like, should the ACC change the tiebreak rules to get Miami into the ACC championship game? I think it's the opposite. I think Miami's going to end up with an at-large, and you're going to get 2 teams potentially if Virginia wins tonight. So I'll say this. I am rooting for Virginia. It sucks. By the way, if we're going to keep conference championship games, just put the 2 highest teams in the rankings at the end of the year. None of this cute 7-team tiebreaker crap. Miami's the best team in the ACC. I'm sorry. They are. They should be playing in Atlanta. Whatever. A couple more, we'll get out of here because I know everybody wants to go watch the ACC championship game. Deliverance says, Aaron's got a point. Alabama bias is so strong, great tradition, but it can be overdone. Yeah, listen, if Vandy was in the if Vandy was in the SEC championship game at 10-2 with a loss to a bad Florida State team, and they lost in the manner that they did, I think we would be talking about Vandy's not in, put in Notre Dame and Miami. But it's Alabama. It's different. I'm not saying it's fair. By the way, we could pretend brand bias doesn't exist. I've been arguing for 3 weeks. BYU's actually got a better resume than either Notre Dame or Miami, and I still believe that. But brand bias matters. And the committee would rather put in Notre Dame, rather put in Miami than they would BYU. Is it fair? Of course not. It's reality. Brand bias absolutely matters. Aaron, they left Auburn out in 17 F Bama. Yes, I get it. The amazing Bughead. Great name, by the way. The difference is that was a 14 playoff. It sucks, but it was a 14 playoff. This is a 12-team playoff. So, yes, I agree. Amazing Bughead also says they lost to freaking Florida State. I don't disagree. I'm just saying it is amazing how we just dismiss that, right? Like, we're just like, oh, yeah, Florida State. Yeah, that was a thing that happened. Let's just pretend. No, it happened. It's bad. Jeff says, who the F cares? It's basketball season. Go away, football. Jeff, I'd love to know what team you support because all of the basketball teams that are normally good stink. And all of the, like if you're, I guess, like if you're a UConn just got a new football coach. Arizona football is awesome. Kentucky's excited about the new coach. Arkansas is excited about their new coach. So who are you rooting for that you don't care about football? You want to talk basketball? Let's see here. Texas Tech hammered BYU. Wow, by BYU. I don't know what that means. Miami is not that good. Listen, they're not that good. They did beat Notre Dame, though. And I think there's an argument about, like, the problem is you can't just start making arguments for some teams but not the others. Like, you can't argue that Notre Dame is playing better now. Like, let me put it this way. You know what the quickest way for the committee to lose all credibility it is to just start making stuff up as they go without any explanation, right? You can explain away most of what they did. You can agree or disagree with it, but you can absolutely explain away most of what they did. You just start putting in Notre Dame based on eye test when there's no metric that says that they should be in, including the head-to-head loss to Miami. I think that's where it gets tough. I think Notre Dame's playing like a top 5, top 6 team in the country right now. I saw Todd Furman. I'll have to text him. Todd's a good buddy of mine. Said that Notre Dame would be favored over Ole Miss, Alabama, and one other SEC team, maybe A&M. Now, I guess they have the A&M loss head-to-head, but Notre Dame's playing good. They're playing well, but we can't just start making up eye test rules as we go. I think Miami's going to get in whether they're actually good or not. Got some basketball. Amazing Bughead. Auburn going to whoop Arizona tonight. Stephen Pearl and my Tigers. All right, so excuse me. The Amazing Bughead is apparently an Auburn fan. I said the other day, I think Auburn might be the most complete team in the SEC. I don't know if they have the highest ceiling. I think they're the most complete team. I like how the pieces fit. Kentucky's a mess. We talked about that this morning. Alabama, don't love the big guys. Arkansas, I think, can get there, but they're not quite there yet. Fit for Expedition says, you must be listening to Mike Luke. He says Arizona is a basketball school and a football school. Is Arizona the quietest 9-3 team in all of college football? By the way, this is like part of the BYU conversation. Everyone's like, BYU didn't play anybody. Beat 2 top 20 teams, including Arizona, which is of course currently in the top 20 at number 18 at 9-3 overall. By the way, won 5 straight to end the regular season. Let's see here. It's going to be a fun game, by the way. I don't know how much basketball we'll do tomorrow because we'll probably just react when the actual bracket comes out. But Arizona-Auburn's going to be an awesome game tonight. All right. Ray says BYU should be in the top 10 already, making their game tonight mandatory, and Alabama not be requiring BYU to meet a higher standard than any school. Just unfair. I saw a stat. I haven't, fact checked it, but basically something like BYU is the only team ever that was 11-1 entering conference championship week as a power conference team that wasn't in the top 10. Listen, it was clear that they needed to win today. It sucks, but that's the way the committee set it up. It's biased. Let's go. Luke, interesting point. He says Miami's 2 losses, Louisville and SMU, serviceable, albeit not elite teams. Neither of those losses is bad. I think what's also interesting about Miami, they have a head-to-head common opponent with Alabama. It's Florida State. They beat Florida State at Florida State. Alabama lost at Florida State. Conversation worth having. All right, I'm going to get out of here on 1 or 2 more. By the way, we will be back on Sunday morning when the bracket comes out. I know every single college football podcast will be live the second the bracket comes out, but it just feels like, to me, there's no reason to wait until, the morning time or whatever. Just feels like it makes the most sense to just do it as soon as the bracket comes out. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Before I do, one, make sure you're subscribed, Aaron Torres Pod YouTube. We have surpassed 67,000 subscribers. We really, really appreciate your support. Make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. Also, Fitz says, I do watch Mike Luke. Mike Luke has been pushing the Arizona is in everything school here the last couple weeks. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. AZ Simon, I hope AZM moment. I don't know what that is. Arizona and BYU both, Alabama and BYU both missed the playoffs. They probably should. I'll give credit where it's due. I saw Ari Wasserman from the field, not field of 68, from On 3. I knew there was a number in his job. He just basically said, hey, Bama and BYU both lost. The easiest thing to do is push both of them out and have Notre Dame and Miami both in. I don't think it's going to happen because, again, then you're just saying, why did you guys make the conference championship games? Now, you could argue BYU wouldn't have been in, but Alabama would have. So it'll be interesting. I'm going to go, reminder, by the way, if you're watching this, SeatGeek, promo code Torres does get you $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. Thank you also to Circa Casino and Circa Sportsbook for all of their help and their support of this show. New sportsbook, Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. probably actually be there later this week because, again, I'll be in Nashville. The sports book is about 40 minutes from Nashville. Thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the Big Ten Conference Championship game. By the way, if you're looking for some late night coverage, I will be on Fox Sports Radio, 11 p.m. Eastern time. Jason Martin and I, 3 hours of college football, 2 a.m. Eastern. You can find us on foxsportsradio.com, the iHeartRadio app, or any of your local stations. We'll be doing a lot of this. I'll be back tomorrow. Bracket comes out at 12 Eastern time. I'll probably be on air at 12:15, 12:20. Thank you for your support. Speak to y'all